General sat alone in her office aboard the warship Defiant. The ship was old but strong, like a warrior who had seen many battles and refused to die. Was reading reports on her tablet when her door opened without warning. Commander, her security chief, stood there with fear in his eyes. In the 3 years had known him, she had never seen him afraid. Not during the uprising, not during the siege of, not even when their fleet faced 10,000 enemy ships at the Red Nebula. But he was afraid now. "General," he said, his voice tight, "we have a problem." Set down her tablet. "Tell me." 12 contacts breached our outer hull 7 minutes ago. They cut through the armor plating like it was paper. Our sensors picked them up for only a moment before they vanished. Vanished? They have cloaking technology beyond anything we've seen, but we got a visual before they disappeared. Swallowed hard. There. The word hung in the air like poison. Had heard stories about this since she was a young officer. Every species in the galaxy had heard stories about them. They were assassins, bred and trained for 1,000 generations to do one thing: kill. Their scales could change color to match any surface. Their bones were hollow but stronger than steel. They could see in total darkness and move without making a sound. The Galaxy King, Sovereign III, used them when he wanted someone dead. Not just dead, but erased. When they killed you, they killed everyone who might remember you. They killed your family. They killed your friends. They burned your home and salted the earth so nothing would grow there again. They were monsters in the shape of soldiers. And 12 of them were now aboard her ship. "How long until they reach the command deck?" asked. "At their current pace, approximately 18 minutes. General, we need to evacuate you immediately. The escape pods." "No." Blinked General. Stood up from her chair. She was not a tall woman. She was not heavily muscled or cybernetically enhanced like some officers. She looked almost ordinary, with dark skin and short gray hair and eyes that had seen too much death. But when she stood, something changed in the room. The air itself seemed to grow heavier. "Lock down all decks between here and the breach point," she said. "Seal every door, every hatch, every maintenance shaft, and tell the crew to stay in their quarters with their doors locked." "General, with respect, that won't stop the... They'll cut through the doors just like they cut through our hull." "I know," walked past him toward her personal quarters. "The lockdown isn't to stop them, it's to keep my crew out of the way." "Out of the way of what?" Didn't answer. She entered her quarters and walked to a small case that sat on a shelf. She hadn't opened this case in 3 years. Part of her had hoped she would never open it again. Inside lay a blade. It was not a military weapon. It was not made of any advanced alloy or fitted with any technology. It was simply a curved sword, forged from steel on old Earth over 200 years ago. The handle was wrapped in leather that had been worn smooth by generations of hands. This blade had belonged to her grandmother, who had been the last warrior queen of the line. Before humanity took to the stars, before they built their great ships and spread across the galaxy, the family had been warriors. They had fought with spears and swords in the jungles of Africa. They had learned to hunt in the darkness, to track prey by the smallest sign, to kill without being seen. When humanity became civilized, they put away those skills. They built cities and wrote laws and learned to solve problems with words instead of weapons. But they never forgot. Drew the blade from its case. The metal sang as it left the sheath, a high clear note that filled her quarters. She held it up to the light and saw her own reflection in the polished steel. "This is a message from," she said softly to herself. "He wants me afraid. He wants humanity afraid." She lowered the blade and turned toward the door. "I will send him a different message." The corridors of the Defiant were dark, had ordered all lights shut off except for emergency strips along the floor. She moved through the shadows like she had been born in them, her bare feet silent on the metal deck. She had removed her boots. She had removed her uniform jacket. She wore only her simple duty clothes and carried only her grandmother's blade. Everything else would slow her down or make noise. They thought they were hunters. They thought they were coming to kill prey. They had killed thousands of targets across the galaxy, and they had never failed. But they had never hunted a human in the dark. Had grown up in the Congo Basin on old Earth. Her grandmother had taught her to track animals through the jungle before she learned to read. She had killed her first lion at age 12, armed with nothing but a spear. When she joined the military, her instructors had been amazed at her ability to move unseen and strike without warning. "You fight like an animal," one of them had told her. He had meant it as an insult. Had smiled. "Thank you," she had said. "That's the highest compliment you could give me." Now she moved through her own ship like a predator through its territory. She knew every corridor, every junction, every hiding place. She knew where the shadows were deepest and where the sound carried farthest. They were coming to hunt her. They didn't know that she was already hunting them. She found a position near a junction where 3 corridors met. She pressed her back against the wall and controlled her breathing, slowing her heart until it barely beat. Her grandmother had taught her this too. A warrior could control their own body. A warrior could become invisible not through technology, but through perfect stillness. She waited in the darkness, patient as stone. And somewhere in the corridors ahead, she heard the faintest sound of scales brushing against metal. They were coming. Smiled in the darkness. It was not a nice smile. It was the smile of something old and dangerous, something that humanity had tried to bury under civilization and progress and peace. They wanted to meet humanity's darkness. She would show it to them. Rand had been killing for over 200 years. He was the leader of this hunting pack, the oldest and most experienced assassin among them. His scales were covered with scars from 1,000 battles. His eyes had seen the death of empires. He had killed generals before. He had killed kings and queens and presidents. He had killed warriors who were legends among their own people. None of them had survived. None of them had even come close. When the Galaxy King had given him this mission, Rand had felt almost insulted. Kill a human general. Humans were soft creatures. They had no claws, no scales, no natural weapons. They could not see in the dark or survive in vacuum or regenerate lost limbs. They were one of the weakest species in the galaxy. This would be easy. But now, moving through the dark corridors of the human ship, Rand felt something he had not felt in decades. He felt wrong. The ship was too quiet. When they had cut through the hull and entered, alarms had screamed throughout the vessel. Humans had shouted and run through the corridors. 12 of them had tried to fight, and Rand's pack had killed them in seconds. But then the lights had gone out. The alarms had stopped. The humans had vanished. Now there was only darkness and silence. The ship felt empty, abandoned. But Rand knew it wasn't empty. He could smell the humans hiding behind their locked doors. He could hear their hearts beating in their quarters. But where was the general? "Spread out," he ordered his pack through their neural link. "Find the target. She cannot hide forever." His assassins moved into the darkness. They were ghosts, shadows, death given form. Their cloaking fields bent light around them until they were invisible to any eye. They moved without sound, without scent, without any trace that they existed. They were perfect hunters. 10 minutes passed. Rand reached a junction where 3 corridors met. He paused there, scanning the darkness with eyes that could see heat signatures through walls. Nothing, the general was not here. Then his neural link flickered. "Eth," he called to one of his subordinates. "Report." Silence. "Eth, report." Nothing. Rand felt his scales ripple with unease. Eth was young but skilled. He would not ignore an order. "All units report status." 11 responses should have come back. Only 10 did. Eth was dead. Rand moved quickly through the corridors. following the last known position of the fallen assassin. He found Eth in a maintenance shaft, lying in a pool of his own blood. His throat had been opened from ear to ear in a single clean cut. There had been no struggle, no warning, no chance to fight back. Something had killed him instantly and silently. Impossible, Rand breathed. He examined the wound with growing disbelief. The cut was perfect, made by a blade of some kind. But how? Eth had been cloaked. He had been invisible. No creature in the galaxy could see through cloaking technology. A second neural link flickered and died. Then a third. Rand spun around, his blade drawn, his eyes searching the darkness. All units converge on my position, now. But his pack was dying. One by one, their neural links went dark. One by one, the greatest assassins in the galaxy were being hunted and killed like animals. "She's hunting us," one of his remaining assassins said, his voice shaking. "The human, she's hunting us." "That's impossible. She's one creature, she's prey." "Prey doesn't kill, prey doesn't." The link went dead. Rand ran. He was not ashamed to admit it. He had survived 200 years by knowing when to fight and when to flee. Something was very wrong on this ship. Something was very wrong with this human. He found the bodies of his pack scattered through the corridors like fallen leaves. Each one had been killed with a single strike. No wasted movement, no hesitation, just death, delivered with the precision of a master. How was this possible? Humans were prey, everyone knew this. They had no natural weapons. They needed tools and technology to survive. They were soft and slow and weak. But the darkness seemed alive around him now. Every shadow could hide death. Every corner could conceal the creature that was hunting his pack. Rand understood, finally, why the lights had been turned off. The human had done it deliberately. She wanted darkness. She wanted to take away the one advantage his pack had, their superior numbers. In the light, 12 could surround one human and kill her in seconds. But in the darkness, in the maze of corridors and shafts, they were separated. They were alone. They were vulnerable. Rand had studied humans before this mission. He had read about their history, their wars, their culture. He had dismissed most of it as irrelevant. What did it matter how they had killed each other before they reached the stars? They were still weak. But now he remembered something he had read. Something about how humans had survived on there before they built their cities. They had been hunters. Not hunters like who were bred and trained for killing. Humans had been something different, something more basic. They had evolved on a world full of creatures faster and stronger than them. They had no claws, no fangs, no armor. So they had learned to hunt differently. They had learned to hunt in the darkness, to track their prey for days without rest, to strike from ambush without warning. They had learned patience and cunning and cruelty. They had become the deadliest hunters on their world, not through strength, but through persistence and intelligence. And now one of them was hunting him. Rand reached a cargo bay and sealed the door behind him. He was breathing hard, his scales pale with something he refused to call fear. Only 4 of his pack remained, 4 out of 12. "We need to leave," one of them said. "We need to return to our ship and report." "We cannot leave." Rand's voice was harsh. "The Galaxy King ordered us to kill the general. If we return without completing the mission, he will kill us himself." "Then what do we do?" Rand looked at the darkness beyond the cargo bay door. Somewhere out there, a human was waiting. A human who had killed 8 assassins in less than an hour. "We stop hunting," he said slowly. "We set a trap instead." "A trap?" "She is skilled, but she is still one creature. If we stay together, if we force her to face us directly, we can overwhelm her." He gestured to his remaining assassins. "We hold this position. We make noise, draw her to us. When she comes, we kill her together." It was a good plan, a logical plan. But as Rand settled into position, he could not shake the feeling that somewhere in the darkness, the human was smiling. She was not afraid. She had never been afraid. And that, more than anything else, terrified him. The trap failed. Rand did not know how it failed. He only knew that one moment there were 4 of them in the cargo bay, and the next moment there were 3. Then 2. Then he was alone, surrounded by the bodies of the greatest assassins in the galaxy. She had come through the ventilation system. She had dropped from above, killed before he could turn, and vanished into the shadows before Rand could react. When they had pursued her, she had separated them somehow, led them into different sections of the cargo bay, and killed them one by one. It had taken less than 5 minutes. Now Rand stood alone in the center of the cargo bay, his blade drawn, his scales shifting through colors as his emotions spiraled out of control. 200 years of killing, and he had never felt so helpless. "You can come out now," he called into the darkness. His voice echoed off the metal walls. "I know you're there. I know you're watching." Silence. "My name is Rand. I have killed 37 targets across this galaxy. I have never failed a mission. I have never felt fear." He turned slowly, searching the shadows. "But I feel it now. You have earned that from me, human. You have earned my respect." More silence. Then a voice came from everywhere and nowhere, soft and calm. "I don't want your respect." Rand spun toward the voice, but there was nothing there. She was using the ship system somehow, projecting her voice to hide her true location. "Then what do you want?" "I want you to understand something." The voice moved, seeming to come from a different direction. "The Galaxy King sent you here to send a message to humanity. He wanted us to be afraid. He wanted us to know that if we don't submit to his rule, he will send monsters to kill us in our homes." "And now you understand," Rand said. "Now you know what they can do." "No," the voice was closer now. "Now you understand what humans can do." Rand felt movement behind him and spun, his blade cutting through the air. But there was nothing there, only shadows. "You killed 12 of my crew when you boarded this ship," the voice continued. 12 good people, engineers, technicians, officers who had families waiting for them back home. They weren't soldiers, they weren't warriors, they were just people doing their jobs, and you slaughtered them like animals. "They were in our way." "Yes, they were." The voice was hard now, cold as space. "And now you're in mine." She stepped out of the shadows. Rand had expected many things. He had expected a large human, perhaps enhanced with cybernetics or wearing powered armor. He had expected weapons, technology, something that would explain how she had killed 11 assassins. Instead, he saw a small woman with dark skin and gray hair. She wore simple duty clothes, stained with blue blood. In her hand was a primitive blade, curved and ancient, made of nothing more than steel. She looked almost ordinary. But her eyes were not ordinary. Her eyes were old and dark and patient, like a predator that had been waiting for this moment since the beginning of time. "You killed my people," she said simply. "Now I'm going to kill you." Rand laughed. It was not a confident laugh. "I am the deadliest assassin in the galaxy. I have killed creatures 10 times your size. You think that little blade can stop me?" "I think," said, "that you have never fought a human before." She moved. Rand was fast. He was faster than any human should be able to track. He had killed opponents before they could blink, before they could think, before they could even realize they were dead. But was not trying to track him. She was not trying to match his speed. She was predicting it. She had watched him fight. She had watched him move through her ship, watched him kill her people, studied his patterns and his habits and his weaknesses. She knew how he would attack before he knew himself. Her blade met his in a shower of sparks. She turned the strike aside and stepped close, too close for his longer blade to be effective. Her elbow caught him in the throat. Her knee drove into his leg. Her blade opened a shallow cut across his arm. He stumbled back, shocked. No one had ever touched him in combat. No one had ever made him bleed. "How?" he gasped. Humans evolved on a world that wanted to kill us, said, circling slowly. Every day was a fight for survival. Every night could be our last. We learned to fight things faster than us, stronger than us, deadlier than us. We learned to win not through strength but through intelligence, through patience, through sheer stubborn refusal to die. She attacked again. This time Ran was ready and their blades danced in the darkness, sparks flying with every strike. He was stronger than her. He was faster than her. But she was always where he didn't expect, always striking where he couldn't defend, always one step ahead. It was like fighting a ghost. The Galaxy King thinks humanity is weak, continued between strikes. He thinks we're prey because we don't have claws or scales or natural weapons. He doesn't understand that we didn't need those things. We survived without them. We conquered our world without them. We reached the stars without them. She caught his blade on hers and twisted, forcing it out of his grip. Before he could recover, her foot swept his legs out from under him, and he crashed to the deck. Her blade pressed against his throat. "We are not prey," said, looking down at him. "We have never been prey. We are the creatures that learned to kill everything that tried to prey on us. We are the species that looked at the darkness between the stars and said, 'That belongs to us.' We are humanity." Rand stared up at her. In 200 years, he had never seen his own death coming. He had always believed he would die in some legendary battle, facing a worthy opponent. Now he was going to die at the hands of a small human woman with a primitive sword. And somehow that felt right. "My king will send more assassins," he said. "He will send fleets. He will not stop until your species is." "Then I will kill them too," said simply. "I will kill every assassin he sends. I will destroy every fleet that threatens my people, and when I am done, I will come for him." She raised her blade. "Tell your ancestors that we're defeated by a human," she said. "Tell them our name so they will remember us." The blade fell. And Ran, the greatest assassin in the galaxy, died with fear in his eyes, and a human's face burned into his memory. Stood over the body for a long moment. The cargo bay was silent. The hunt was over. She had won. But she knew this was not the end. The Galaxy King would hear about this. He would be angry. He would want revenge. Good. Let him come. Humanity had worn the mask of civilization for centuries. They had learned to be kind and peaceful and cooperative. They had almost forgotten what they really were. But had not forgotten. And now she was going to remind the galaxy. The orbital palace of Sovereign III was the largest structure in the known galaxy. It hung in space like a small moon, covered in golden spires and crystal domes and weapons powerful enough to destroy planets. 1,000 species had sent their ambassadors to this palace. 100 kings had knelt before the sovereign's throne. For 10,000 years had ruled the galaxy from this place. He was ancient beyond measure, his scales gray with age, his eyes cold with the weight of centuries. He had conquered 3,000 worlds. He had crushed 1,000 rebellions. He had watched species rise and fall like waves on an endless shore. Nothing surprised him anymore. Nothing until the human shuttle arrived. The small ship appeared at the edge of his palace's detection range 3 days after he had sent the to-kill general. It was alone, unarmed, broadcasting a diplomatic signal. It requested permission to deliver a package to the sovereign himself. His advisors had recommended destroying the shuttle immediately. It was obviously a trap, they said. The humans were trying something desperate and foolish. Better to kill them now and send the debris back to there as a warning. But was curious. He had expected panic from the humans after the assassination. He had expected desperate pleas for mercy, offers of surrender, perhaps even a suicidal counterattack against his fleets. He had not expected a diplomatic shuttle. "Let them land," he ordered. "Let us see what the humans have to say before they die." The shuttle landed in his main hangar bay. 100 guards surrounded it, their weapons ready. watched from his throne room through a direct video feed, his ancient face showing no expression. The shuttle's door opened. A single cargo container floated out on anti-gravity pads. It was large, about the size of a small transport vehicle, sealed with a diplomatic marker. The guards scanned it for weapons, for explosives, for any kind of trap. They found nothing but organic material. The container was brought to the throne room and placed before the sovereign's seat. Leaned forward slightly, curious despite himself. What could the humans possibly be sending him? "Open it," he commanded. His guards broke the seal and lifted the lid. Inside were 12 heads. 12 heads preserved in stasis fields, their scales gray in death, their eyes frozen in expressions of surprise and fear. Ran was among them, the greatest assassin had ever employed, his face locked in a mask of terror. The throne room fell silent. Stared at the heads, his mind struggled to process what he was seeing. There were legends. They were monsters that other monsters feared. They had never failed a mission. And now they were dead, all of them, sent back to him like garbage. "There's more," one of his guards said, his voice trembling. "In the shuttle, there's someone." The doors to the throne room opened. General walked in. She was alone. She carried no weapons except the ancient blade at her hip. She wore a simple military uniform, clean and pressed, with medals on her chest that did not recognize. Her dark skin was unmarked by wounds. Her gray hair was cut short. Her face showed no fear. She had come herself. The throne room erupted into chaos. Guards drew their weapons and aimed at her. Advisors screamed for her execution. Officials ran for the exits, convinced this was some kind of suicide attack. But raised a single clawed hand, and silence fell. He stared at the human woman who had walked into his palace alone. He stared at the heads of his assassins piled at his feet. He felt something he had not felt in 1,000 years. Uncertainty. "You came here," he said slowly, "to my palace, to the heart of my empire, alone." "Yes." His voice was calm and clear, carrying across the vast throne room without effort. "I came to deliver your assassins personally. You understand that I could kill you with a word. I could have you torn apart by my guards. I could have you tortured for 1,000 years." "Yes." "And yet you came anyway." "Yes." Leaned back in his throne. Around him, his court watched in shocked silence. No one had ever spoken to the Galaxy King this way. No one had ever stood before him without groveling, without pleading, without showing the fear he demanded. But this human showed nothing. Her eyes met his without flinching. Her hands were steady at her sides. She stood like someone who had already won. "Why?" asked. "Why risk your life to deliver a message you could have sent by drone?" "Because I wanted you to see me." Took a step forward and the guards around her raised their weapons. She ignored them. "I wanted you to look into my eyes and understand that I am not afraid of you. I wanted you to know that when your assassins came for me, I killed them myself. Not my soldiers, not my technology, me." She gestured at the container of heads. "These were the best killers in your empire. They had never failed. They cut through my ship's defenses like they were nothing. They killed 12 of my crew before I could stop them." Her voice hardened. 12 good people, people with families, people who had done nothing wrong except serve on my ship. "They were casualties of war," said dismissively. "It happens." "Yes, it does." Eyes were cold. "And now your casualties are piled at your feet. That also happens." Felt his scales ripple with irritation. This human was not behaving correctly. She should be afraid. She should be bargaining, offering concessions, trying to save her miserable species from his wrath. Instead, she was lecturing him. "You are bold," he admitted. "But boldness is not enough to save your species. I have 3,000 worlds under my rule. I have fleets that could darken the skies of every human planet. I have weapons that could crack you like an egg." "I know." Then why are you here? What do you hope to accomplish? Looked at him for a long moment. Then she spoke the words that would change the galaxy forever. I came to give you a choice. The throne room fell absolutely silent. A choice? His voice was dangerous. You give me a choice. I am the Galaxy King. I rule everything from the core to the rim. What choice could a human possibly offer me? The choice between peace and extinction. The words hung in the air like a sword about to fall. Felt his ancient heart skip a beat. He had threatened other species with extinction before. He had carried out that threat more than once. But no one had ever threatened him. You are insane, he said. Your species is nothing. You have existed for barely a moment in galactic history. You have a handful of ships, a handful of worlds, a handful of soldiers. You cannot threaten me. I already have. His voice did not waver. I killed 12 of your best assassins with nothing but a blade my grandmother gave me. I walked into your palace alone, past all your guards and all your weapons, and I am standing before you now. I have already proven what one human can do when she is determined. She stepped closer to the throne. Imagine what billions of us could do. Looked into her eyes, and for the first time in 1,000 years, he saw something that made him afraid. He saw absolute certainty. She was not bluffing. She was not desperate. She believed every word she was saying. She believed that humanity could threaten his empire, challenge his rule, perhaps even destroy everything he had built. And looking at the heads of his assassins, was not entirely sure she was wrong. The silence in the throne room stretched like a wire about to snap. Studied the human standing before him. His guards had their weapons aimed at her heart. His advisors were signaling frantically for him to give the order to kill her. Every protocol, every tradition, every instinct told him to destroy this insolent creature who dared threaten the Galaxy King in his own palace. But he did not give the order, because for the first time in 1,000 years was uncertain. Explain yourself, he said finally. What exactly are you proposing? Clasped her hands behind her back. She looked like a soldier giving a report, not a prisoner begging for her life. Humanity doesn't want your empire. We don't want your worlds or your resources or your subjects. We are not conquerors. We simply want to be left alone to find our own path among the stars. That is not how the galaxy works. The strong rule the weak. The powerful consume the powerless. This has always been true. It has always been true because no one has challenged it. Eyes never left his. We are challenging it now. We are telling you that humanity will not be ruled. We will not kneel. We will not submit. And if I refuse, if I send my fleets to burn your worlds and enslave your people, then we will fight. Laughed. It was a cold sound, ancient and dry. You will fight against the greatest empire in galactic history, against fleets that number in the millions, against weapons that can destroy stars. Yes, you would lose. Perhaps, nodded slowly. Perhaps you would burn our worlds and kill billions of our people. Perhaps you would win eventually, but we would make you pay for every planet. We would make you bleed for every system. We would fight you for 100 years, 1,000 years, however long it took. She took another step toward the throne. The guards moved to stop her but waved them back. He wanted to hear what she would say next. And even if you won, continued, even if you destroyed every human ship and conquered every human world, you would never be safe. Because humans do not forget. Humans do not forgive. If you make yourself our enemy, we will hunt you forever. Hunt me? I am immortal. I have ruled for 10,000 years. Exactly. Smile was cold. You have 10,000 years of enemies. 10,000 years of species you have conquered, peoples you have enslaved, worlds you have destroyed. They fear you now because they think you are invincible. But if humanity fights you, if we make you bleed, if we prove that the Galaxy King can be hurt. She let the implication hang in the air. Understood. He had maintained his empire through fear. The conquered species obeyed because they believed resistance was impossible. But if the humans showed them it was possible to fight back, to hurt him, to challenge his rule, the entire empire could unravel. "You would destroy yourselves just to wound me," he said slowly. "That is either very brave or very foolish." "It is neither. It is simply what we are." His voice was quiet now, almost gentle. "Humans are not the strongest species in the galaxy. We are not the fastest or the longest-lived or the most advanced. But we are the species that does not give up. We are the species that fights to the last breath, the last bullet, the last drop of blood. We are the species that would rather die free than live as slaves." She gestured at the container of heads again. "Your assassins learned this. They came to kill me and I killed them instead. Not because I am stronger or faster than they were, but because I refused to be their prey. I refused to accept that I should be afraid of them." Was quiet for a long time. Around him, his court waited in terrified silence. They had never seen the Galaxy King hesitate before. They had never seen him consider an enemy's words instead of simply destroying them. Finally he spoke. "What are your terms?" A wave of shocked whispers swept through the throne room. The Galaxy King negotiating with a human. It was unprecedented. It was unthinkable. But simply nodded, as if she had expected this. "A non-aggression treaty," she said. "Your empire does not enter human space. Human ships do not enter your territory without permission. No assassins, no fleets, no threats. We leave each other alone and go our separate ways. And if I agree to this, what guarantee do I have that humanity will honor the treaty?" Our word met his gaze. Humans value their word. When we make a promise, we keep it. As long as your empire leaves us alone, we will leave you alone. But if you break the treaty, if you threaten our people again, we will respond with everything we have. Considered, he could refuse. He could kill this human and send his fleets to destroy her species. It would cost him greatly. It would take years, perhaps decades, but he would win eventually. Probably. But as he looked into his eyes, he saw something that made him hesitate. He saw the same look he had seen in the eyes of his assassin's severed heads. Not fear, not desperation. Certainty. This human was not afraid to die. She was not afraid to watch her entire species die. She had walked into his palace alone, knowing she might never walk out, and she had done it anyway. That kind of courage was rare. That kind of determination was dangerous. Had built his empire by knowing which battles to fight. He had survived 10,000 years by recognizing threats before they became disasters, and every instinct he had was telling him that humanity was a threat like no other. Not because they were powerful, not because they were numerous, because they were willing to die for each other. "I will consider your terms," he said finally. "You may return to your ship. My guards will not stop you." Bowed. It was not a deep bow, not the groveling obeisance he demanded from other species. It was the bow of one equal acknowledging another. "Choose wisely, sovereign," she said. "Humanity prefers peace. We would rather trade with your empire than fight it. We would rather be your friends than your enemies, but we will never in all our history forget how to make war." She turned and walked toward the door. 100 guards watched her go. 1,000 weapons were aimed at her back. None of them fired. She walked out of the throne room, through the palace, past armies of soldiers who could have killed her with a word. No one moved. No one spoke. 3 weeks later, signed the treaty. His advisors were furious. His generals demanded war, but had made his decision, and the Galaxy King's word was law. When they asked him why he had agreed to the human terms, was silent for a long time. He stood at a window in his palace, looking out at the stars that he had ruled for 10,000 years. "Because I looked into that human's eyes," he said quietly, "and I saw something I had forgotten existed in this galaxy. I saw someone who was not afraid to die. I saw someone who was not afraid to kill. I saw someone who would burn the universe itself to protect her people." He turned from the window, his ancient face troubled. "The humans are not like the others. They are not prey pretending to be predators. They are apex predators who learned to wear the mask of civilization. They built cities and wrote laws and learned to be kind. But underneath that mask, they are still what they have always been: hunters." His advisors were silent. "If we push them too far," continued, "they will take off that mask, and then we will see what humanity truly is. I have ruled for 10,000 years. I have destroyed 100 species, but I am not foolish enough to wake a sleeping predator just to prove I can." He never sent assassins to human space again. And in the decades that followed, as humanity spread across the stars, other empires learned the lesson that had learned. The humans were kind. They were cooperative. They were eager to trade and build and grow. They made wonderful friends and terrible enemies. But gods help you if you threaten their own. General retired 10 years after the treaty was signed. She returned to Earth, to the Congo Basin where her grandmother had taught her to hunt. She built a small house by a river and spent her remaining years in peace. But she kept her grandmother's blade above her fireplace. And sometimes, late at night, she would take it down and hold it in her hands, remembering the darkness of the Defiant, the fear in Rand's eyes, the silence of the throne room when she had given the Galaxy King his choice. She had been a warrior. She had done terrible things, but she had also protected her people, and that was enough. On her grave, when she finally died at the age of 93, her family carved a simple message: she was not afraid. And across the galaxy, for thousands of years afterward, species would tell stories about the human general who had killed 12 assassins and walked into the Galaxy King's palace alone. They would tell their children about the day humanity proved it was not prey. And they would remember the lesson she had taught them all. Never threaten a human's home, never harm a human's people. Because humans do not forgive. And humans do not forget.